Cool. All right, everybody. We're on our third and four-part series about the Sabbath. And just to recap, we just had a look at how to stop, how to rest. And today we're going to have a look at delight. And then next week, Chris is coming along and she's going to talk us through worship. Okay, so it's a four-part series about the Sabbath. I just want to recap, just to build some building blocks into our practice of Sabbath rest. And we've been looking at it over the course of the last 4 weeks now. So just going back through some of the things we've looked at already. And we looked at stop to begin with. And stop basically meant stop. Stop doing what you're doing. And it's actually really hard to do, isn't it? It's probably one of the hardest things to do in this present culture, is to go swim against that tide of busyness that goes around in our lives. But it's a really important point. The root word of, one of the meanings of the root word of Sabbath is stop. Just basically stop what you're doing. And we had a look at that, and Chrissy pointed out a couple of things you can do for stopping. Is like, don't expect too much, first of all. It's going to be hard to take a 24-hour period out of your life. Just think about doing maybe a couple or maybe 4 hours. You take out of that life just a small amount that you're going to do regularly every week. And you're going to take it out and spend it with a small number of people. Maybe just 2 or 3 people. Not the whole church. You won't get us all in one, but just 2 or 3 people in your life. It could just be family members, the kids that you're looking after. I just want to take that time to stop and spend with each other. We'll practice that every week. And then we had a look at rest. And we noted that we are created beings. We're not God. We don't have God qualities. We don't have omnipotence. Can't go on forever. We were created to work and to rest. It's a very important part. It's part of our makeup. Rest is really important. And we looked at how some of the modern research today actually points out that when you rest, your brain goes into another mode of work. Starts working on stuff that the rest of your time in your daily week, in your organized life, it doesn't. It goes into this work where it looks at things like your identity and morality and relationships, all the stuff that you can't really think a lot about when you're busy with tasks of your life. So that's what your brain does in the nature. So it naturally rests and it gets to work on all this good stuff. And we also looked at, in order for that to happen, you need to prepare. We looked at Leviticus 16, and it said that the Israelites were commanded to prepare beforehand. You can't just wait and expect Sabbath just to happen. Just turn up in your 4 hours and then think it all go okay. You've got to prepare beforehand. And the Israelites were told to actually make their food before the Sabbath rest and prepare, so that when they came to those 4 hours, the 24 hours that they had, they will be prepared and ready just to rest. So that's what we had to look at. So today we're going to look at delight. I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of those, I don't wake up every morning and think full of delight. It's not something that I would just think about every single day of my life, why are you laughing at? I don't know. This is not, just normal life is just busy. It's full of stuff, lots of stuff going on. It's not always easy to find delight within it all, is it? But have to think about it for a moment. What are the sort of things that bring you joy in your life? Now, what are the sort of things that give you delight? What was that?
Life.
Life itself. Yeah, life itself gives us delight. And so part of discipleship is learning to live a delighted life in the Lord. But in our culture, we're living in more and more like a neurotically busy, depressive, and anxious-prone society. It's very, very hard to find delight within it. I'm amazed at the amount of different types of peanut butter I find at Tesco's. If I want to go and find just a jar of peanut butter, there's now so many different varieties I've got to look at. And a few weeks ago, I was baking a cake for somebody, and Chris Markham told me to get this icing for this special cake like this, and I've never got this icing before. And I went into Tesco's and I looked at the shelf for this one, just looking for this one particular type of icing. And there were so many different types of icing. And instantly I'm filled with kind of an anxiety of which type of icing for this? Can you just give me the one type of icing? We live in an age full of joys and delights that would have been inconceivable 100 years ago. It'd be amazing that you would have any type of icing at all. Somebody gave you a banana, you would be amazed. 150 years ago, if you found a yellow banana, it would be a piece of wonder. They used to be black. Now we have yellow, but you find a black banana at Tesco, you throw it away. If somebody gave you a yellow banana 150 years ago, you're like, this is for me, really? Maybe we should wrap it up and give it to the Queen or somebody special. Be a really unique and special thing. How quickly is our joy lost in some of the things that we do not appreciate any longer? So I want to look at a few things today. We're going to look at three things God helps us to, on our Sabbath, to find delight. Excuse me. Three things. First of all, God created the world around us, and it is good. Secondly, it's to be enjoyed. And thirdly, it's to be enjoyed with Him. God with us. That's three things. God created the world around us, it's good. It's to be enjoyed, and it's to be with Him. God created things to be, the world around us to be good. Now, a long time ago, people looked at the Sabbath as kind of more of like a religious duty. They saw some of the good things about this. Just bit back, Jan, the other way. Well, we'll camp there for a bit. They looked at the Sabbath and they looked at what the instructions were for the Sabbath, and they realized, oh no, I need to stop doing things. I need to keep away from things in order so I can not be distracted and I can worship God. Actually, not long ago, I think, in the west coast of Scotland, if you were to drive up the west coast, what you might notice on a Sunday morning is some people's cars, at the back seats, actually had newspaper on the windows, and they were taped up, or bin bags. That's because certain Christians at a particular time, and not long ago, would think that going to church on a Sunday was distracting. Looking out at the nature and the world around you would distract you from God. So they would actually put, and especially their children, so they would put newspaper on the windows and cover them up. Now, I love the Puritans. Puritans, we've got a lot of stuff to learn from them. But there's something not quite right about that. And that's because if you don't have this part here, this is just before, in Genesis 1, this is just before God talks about the Sabbath rest. And this is the last thing He says before He talks about Sabbath, before He introduces the Sabbath. And it says, God saw all that He had made, and it was very good. If you miss that bit out, you won't have a Sabbath. They come together. Right? This is the seed, the Sabbath is the flower. God saw all that He made, and it was very good. It's not meant to be like this. You're not meant to be in your prayer closet for look, if you pray for 7 hours, it's great, it's fantastic if you want to be for the Lord, but that's not what it's really about. Sabbath was meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to look at and go, wow, this is great. Look at God's creation around me, and I'm meant to feel delight and joy in it. It's a bit like as if Michelangelo, do you know Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel? You know what I mean by the Sistine Chapel? That picture where there's like is it Adam and he's reaching out like that, and God's reaching down at him like that? You know, it's a bit, imagine if Michelangelo and his team had been working on it for years, perhaps decades, I don't know how long, I didn't look it up, and they're striving over to get every piece just right. It's so beautiful. So for thousands of years, people will look back at it and be in absolute wonder. And then the last moment, Michelangelo was just the last little stroke, the last final stroke, and he just did it. He did a little thing like that. And as soon as he did it, he was like, right, nobody look at it! Nobody look up! Nobody see anything! Don't get distracted. We're going to have a Sabbath. I can see you, Leonardo, you're looking up. Stop doing it. What would be the point of that? As soon as you finish a masterpiece like that, you want everybody to enjoy it and to see it, not put bin bags over it, not cover it up. That's what God did. He said God saw all that He made and it was very good. And then straight after, that's when He says, God blessed the seventh day and made it holy because He rested from all the work He did in creating it. We're supposed to enjoy the Sabbath day. That's the hard message, because the reality in our lives, as the Lord teaches us, we'll face many trials, many difficulties. But this is why the Sabbath day is so important. So we can take a moment out to stop telling ourselves, everything's fine, everything's okay, or to tell ourselves constantly that everything is bad and everything's a trial, but rather to say, there is and always will be good. What God has done is good. And we need to proclaim that in our lives. Many years ago, I had this is not a very pleasant story. I couldn't think of another better one to talk about. I had a stomach bug, and it wasn't very pleasant. It was terrible. I remember, like, for 3 days straight, I couldn't keep any food down. I couldn't keep water down. I never had it quite that bad before. I was really trying to sip water. And about, I think, the third day after I stopped hallucinating, I was going crazy after not having so much water. I managed to pick myself up, and I walked to the bathroom, and I got the tap, and I turned the tap, and I put some water in my hand from the bathroom tap, and I just reached it up to my mouth, and I just took a bit into my mouth. I think for the first time in my life, I tasted water, and it was wonderful. I remember, and my mouth is watering right now, just thinking about water. It just tasted so good. Sabbath is meant for those moments, like when you're in the midst of the trials, to say, no, there's still good out there in the world, and it's wonderful. You can find good in the smallest things. Ali, who's not here right now, bought me socks for Christmas. And you know what I'm talking about, because they were good socks. They are good socks, really good socks. I'm really enjoying my socks. It's really important to find, I know, I'll tell you, they're good socks. When you find something like that, and you enjoy it, and you delight in it, that's where we find the goodness of the Sabbath rest. So that's the first thing. God created it to be good. It's not to be covered up with bin bags. It's not a religious duty. It's to be enjoyed. Okay, second thing, is to be enjoyed. How easily something that brings us joy can become joyless and enslaving. Facebook used to be a joy. I don't know if you know that. Maybe some of you are not on Facebook. But a long time ago, when Facebook was starting out, I was a bit of a geeky person, so I actually found out about Facebook with some friends of mine. And Facebook back then, you'd have to be a university student to be on it. Not everybody could be on it, only university students. I was part of university, and I was getting Facebook, and it was a joy because I had so many friends living in different parts of the world, at different colleges. And I could see what was going on in their lives. They would post a picture, and I go, that's what they're doing. And they post a little bit about themselves, and I find out about it. It's really cool. Back during the day, it was really cool. Maybe you had like 4 or 5 friends that you could hear about. But how easily something like that became turned from a joy to a not enough. That's often what happens. Something becomes a joy, and then it becomes not enough. It needs a little bit more. I looked on Facebook recently, and it's just a confusing mess of buttons and options and feeds and pictures, and so I don't really know what's going on anymore. Once was the joy is now not enough. There's always a not enough with screens. That's why we binge. Because we feel like there needs to be a little bit more. I got addicted just recently to YouTube Shorts. Don't do it. Don't go onto YouTube Shorts. It's just so addictive. It's just like when I watch another video after video. They're only about 3 seconds long. Just totally consumes my life and enslaves it. Where does all that come from? Well, it comes from this part, and back in the Genesis, just before, just when God is creating the world, and it says this, then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant to the face of the whole earth, every tree that has fruit with seed in it. It will be yours for food. Notice what God is doing here. God has given mankind a gift, and that mankind is every tree that has fruit and seed in it. Every seed-bearing plant and every tree. Now this is a little subtle in the English. In the Hebrew it comes out a bit more. It's a point that the author is trying to make. Every seed-bearing plant, every tree, everything God gives us. Generously giving us everything. Like John. And then he goes on to say, and to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground. Everything that has breath and life in it. I give you every green plant for food. And it was so. God gave us everything. Yeah. But he's commanded one little thing, one tiny thing. God gives us everything. And he says this, and the Lord God commanded man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat from it, you will certainly die. So I can say every tree of the garden, and you only need to not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Why? Because you'll die. You die. So you're free to do all this stuff. It's amazing, right? But Satan comes into the garden, and Satan tries to tempt man away from what God has done for them. Thank you, Jan. Sorry, one more. More, thank you. And now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals that the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, did God really say, you must not eat from any tree in the garden? Now notice what it says there. You must not eat from any tree in the garden. Is that what God said? Is that what God said? Do you see what Satan's doing? It's already tempting us to believe that God is stingy, that God doesn't give us stuff, that we don't have enough. Thank you, John. And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat from the fruit of the trees in the garden. Now, she knows that. But God said, you must not eat from the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die. Do you see what happened there? Do you see the difference there? Jan? And you must not touch it. Well, God never said that. You can touch the tree if you want. You can hang off it, hang out at it, sit underneath it. That's fine. Again, this is quite subtle in the English. It comes out a bit more in the Hebrew. But this part here is an extra little bit of thing that God said, I didn't say that. And we start to think in this moment that God hasn't given us enough. He didn't give us everything. He only gave us some things. Thank you, John. And it says, then Satan comes along and says, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. And then he tempts us to believe that there's something more out there. You don't have enough. God is not gracious. God is not good. He's taking it from you. Have more. Take. Thank you, Jan. When the woman saw the fruit of the tree was good for pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some of it and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. So obviously, it's not just Eve, it's Adam there too, just being passive and neglectful in the background there. So here we are at the fall, and here we have this kind of not enough nature that is woven within mankind, in all of us. It's a sense that God doesn't give us enough, even though he gave us everything. When there was a famous king, Alexander, who ruled over Greece, and he conquered almost all of the known world at that time, from one corner to the next. And at the end of it all, he cried and wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. Imagine having everything in the world, completely everything given to you, and yet feeling like you don't have enough. Where will be the delight? Where will be the joy? Imagine living in a world where God gave you everything, every branch and every tree and you could rule over everything, and you still didn't feel like you had enough. Imagine living in a world where Queen Victoria would be amazed at the stuff that you have, and yet you still feel like you don't have enough. I could go down to Asda and buy yellow sticker food products that are going off, and I would still eat better than Queen Victoria. She wouldn't even know what a Rogan Josh is. So Sabbath is not something more to get, but it's to enjoy the good things that we have. It's about dialing back our desires. It's not, instead of overstimulating with the promise screen, God gives us trees and shrubs. God gives us new socks. God gives us basic stuff. So what do you like to do? John Mark Comer, who we're getting a lot of this stuff, who's been very influential in some of the things we're looking at. If you know the book, what is it called?
Ruthless Elimination.
Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. John Mark Comer is the author of that book. He's been very helpful at looking at Sabbath. He describes how on his Sabbath, he goes about trying to setting it out with two lists. I will list and I will not list. And his I will list would be something like, they will sleep, which I was quite surprised about. I didn't think sleep would be on it. But sleep is something you can enjoy. I will pray. I will be together with my Sabbath group. I will feast and I will celebrate. I will be something like not going shopping or doing the work around the house. And that's really easy to be done, right? It's really easy to be distracted by the work that needs to be done around the house. I will not watch the news or watch TV. Instead, the most important thing is to make your own list. So it's to try and find things that you can do, that you enjoy, that's part of God's creation. It's not trying to hide from it. It's trying to find something that you like to do that excludes sleeping, and enjoy it on your Sabbath. Enjoy it with others. Sabbath is not a place to hide from the world or spend time in piety or your prayer closet. It's not a day to binge either and to try and distract yourself with what's on your screen. It's to enjoy the simple things we have been given. And we've got to work at that. It's not going to be easy. Those two things, first of all, is God created the world and it was good. And God created the world for us to enjoy. But we are liable to go and seek after most of our life, trying to attain something more. Whereas the Sabbath, we want to dial it back and just enjoy the simple things around us. Okay, lastly, we're going to look at, how am I doing for time? Am I going ahead of time?
Okay.
Okay, I feel like I'm way ahead. Not just yet, thanks, Jan. Thanks, Jan. Doing a great job, Jan. Jan and I don't practice before this. God is with us. Now, I have a friend of mine called AJ. Some of you know him because when I got baptized, he was baptizing me, dunking me under the water. And we've been friends for a very, very long time. And I tell the story that I'm going to tell you, I tell it with AJ, and it's going to have perhaps a different reaction with AJ than I do with you guys. But I'll tell you the story anyway. One day we were driving across Finland. It was taking a long time to get across Finland. Finland's a big country. It takes hours to get from one place to another. And we were driving with his family, his dad and his mum, and me, AJ, his wife Heather, and their young son Isaac. We're all stuffed in this car, this cramped car. We're driving this really long distance. And we were chatting along the way, and I just a bit bantery back then, and I made some kind of jokey comments that I would normally do. And I think I said to Robin, his dad, I think I said something like, Robin, do you know any beautiful women? Because I was looking to maybe meet somebody in Finland, and he said no. Now, see, for AJ and me, because we know Robin, and we know his character, we know that in that moment, he was trying his very, very best to be respectful to his wife, who was sitting right next to him. And he wanted to tell me that he didn't know anybody who was beautiful because he's not interested in the other women. But the way that it sounded in that moment, it sounded to us like he was saying every single woman in his life, including his wife, was not beautiful. And I remember at that moment that all of us just started to burst out laughing. Like with tears streaming down our face. Have you ever laughed so much that you just hurt yourself, your belly hurt, and you couldn't cope with it anymore? You're just laughing and laughing. And it wouldn't go away. It wouldn't travel. The awkwardness just made it even more funny. And I remember looking out the window, trying to stop myself laughing because I felt like disrespectful to Robin. I felt like it was going on too long. I just wanted to hold it in. But it just made it worse. And I could tell that other people were trying to hold it in. And the fact that I could tell that other people were trying to hold it in just made the laughter even worse and come out more. Now, when I would tell that story to AJ, even before I started, he's already laughing. Now, you guys, I saw a couple of snickers there, but it's not really funny to you. It's not, you weren't there at the time because you weren't with us. Had you been there, no matter how many times I try and tell that story to other people, it's nowhere near as funny as it was when you were there. When you're with someone, that's what makes it really delightful. That moment of being with. And God says He is with us. How many times in our lives do we forget that? God is with you in the journey. The whole point of the gospel message. The cross of Jesus Christ tells us that when He died there, He didn't just die so that He could be a good moral teacher that we would look up to. Jesus Christ died on the cross so that we could be with God. All our sin was handed to Christ. Christ pays the punishment for that sin. And now I can be with God forever. Because of Jesus, not because of me, not because I'm good, not because I'm righteous or have done anything good this week. Because what Jesus Christ has done, I am assured that God is with me always. Mike Pilavachi, I was just reading recently, Mike Pilavachi is an author, and I just want to read what he said from his book. The main stumbling block to Christianity for some is the problem of sin. They are offended that they should be branded with the label sinner. We have our faults, our little ways, but at heart we are decent and good people. How easily we deceive ourselves. The word sin is just a PC word today. It's an old-fashioned word. We prefer other, nicer phrases. Here are two that I sometimes use. The first is what I do when I'm tired. This is not a description so much as an excuse. My favorite substitute phrase, however, is my little weakness. This can be almost cute. My little weakness. And Jesus did not die for what I do when I'm tired. He did not die for my little weakness. He died for my sin. I feel sorry for those who don't think they have sinned very much, because they can never understand how much they have been forgiven. When Christ comes to us, he comes to us so we can be completely forgiven. And I can stand before God and I can say he's my Father. That God is with us in that way. I just want to read to you from Mark chapter... Oh, where's my Bible? Don't have a Bible. It's okay. I want to read to you from Mark chapter 2. If you have got a Bible in front of you, let me just read from it. Mark chapter 2, verses 23 to 28. Verse 23. One Sabbath day, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and his disciples walked along. They began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing this what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" And Jesus answered, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. He also gave some to his companions." Then Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." God is with us. Religiousness will say that you need to do without the good things that God created. Satan will say, it's never enough. But the gospel says it's more than enough. It's everything. So when you're having your Sabbath rest this week, have a think about those things. Have a think about what God has done is good. The world around you is good. You can be thankful for stocks. Have a think about something that you can enjoy, not just spend time distracting yourself. Be a part of. Something that's simple. Something that's not a distraction. Let's think about how God is now with us. Delight in the fact that everything you've ever done, no matter what it is, has been taken care of by Jesus Christ, so he can bring us close to him. I'm going to take a moment now just to be quiet in our hearts, and then I'm going to pray. So just take a moment before the Lord by the Holy Spirit, and then I'll pray for us.